morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have the title of Two Moms and a Baby. I want to tell you a story that happened once upon a time. There was a baby boy who was taken care of by two moms. Yes, two mothers. It is a unique and at the same time an amazing story because this little baby boy became the person that delivered Israel out of slavery in Egypt. It was not a good time to be born. He was born in a generation in Egypt where his fellow countrymen were slaves. It was a time when they were hated, discriminated, and even tortured or killed without justice. The Bible history showed that one of their forefathers, Joseph, became a leader and second in command in Egypt. And we all know the story. This Joseph was given the office similar to the prime minister of these days because he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. A time of 7 years of abundance and plenty, and then after that, a time of famine throughout the land. He did not only interpret the dream, but he also gave the wisest advice on what needs to be done. So Joseph's dad, Jacob, and families were invited to live in Egypt to escape the famine. And so the Israelites migrated, lived comfortably in the land of Egypt called Goshen, and they grew in after some generations. And as generations changed, Egypt's leaders became insecure in thinking that the Israelites will be a trouble for some time. They become worried that someday these people may cause trouble and even overthrow them. So let's read in Exodus 1, verse 8. I'm using the New International Version. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. And so Pharaoh decided to put them in slavery, thinking that if they are persecuted, their population will be diminished. But the opposite happened. Israelites still grew in numbers. And later on, without mercy, he commanded the midwives to kill the babies, the baby boys of Israel. But we know in the story that the midwives did not want to do that. They have all the excuses not to kill the babies. And because of that, Pharaoh became more furious and mad. And he just wanted to annihilate all the Hebrew boys. So we can read in Exodus 1:22. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born, you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. When I'm reading that scripture, I remember the story of Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments. He used to say, so let it be written, so let it be done. So for sure, this crime of throwing hundreds of Hebrew baby boys to the river Nile were happening during this time. And it's a very sad time for many families. If I were one of those Hebrew families and I have 4 children now, boy killed, girl lived, boy killed, boy killed. It's just like too much for me to think about it. Can you just imagine what a pregnant woman will be thinking? Oh, praying that it's going to be a girl, but it's a boy, and then they just throw in the river. But there's this couple, Daddy Amram and Mom Jochebed, and they were from the tribe of Levi. Jochebed gave birth to a beautiful baby boy and kept him for 3 months. Let's read in Hebrews 23, Hebrews 11, verse 23. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child and they were not afraid of the king's edict. I find that very interesting. In the midst of terrible abuses, there were people of God who were not afraid. That is an example of a mother's love. A mother does not fear. A mother has courage to protect her child. Yes, Jochebed kept her baby until she can no longer be hidden to the Egyptian authority. And I try imagining again myself, how will I hide my baby when the baby starts to cry and she kept for 3 months? How can she have the baby stop again? So it's very difficult. But Jochebed was courageous as long as it was possible to take care of that baby boy. But time came when she realized that she cannot hide that boy anymore. And the only option was to obey the Pharaoh's edict. Her baby boy must be thrown into the Nile, like all the other Hebrew moms who threw their baby boys. But the problem is that Jochebed cannot kill her baby boy. It was a very difficult decision. But the scriptures showed her motherly love and clever design to preserve the life of her baby while obeying the edict of the Pharaoh. So this was the time when she was not able to conceal him any longer, made a wise decision. And God, through the intensity of her faith, caused her to inherit a vision that he had appointed for Moses. She made this little cradle or basket of plaited reeds, which were believed to be protection against crocodiles. Then placed this cradle with her baby secretly among the reeds of the riverbank, and told Miriam, her young daughter, to stand near to watch over the small craft. That wisdom, I believe, came from God. Now, the baby was saved by the second mom. That's the Pharaoh's daughter. When she saw the floating cradle or the basket among the reeds, she saw how beautiful the baby was, and she had compassion on him. She knew that the baby needed some milk, and quietly agreed to the young girl, Miriam, to find someone who can nourish her newly adopted Hebrew baby boy. We have to remember that Miriam was there all alone. The very moment that she needed, she said, I can present you a nurse who can nurse your baby. So it's just like, because Miriam also followed the instruction of Jochebed to follow the cradle wherever it will go. So let's read on Acts 7:20. At that time, Moses was born, and he was no ordinary child. For 3 months, he was cared for by his family. When he was placed outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him and brought him up as her own son. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and actions. So we can see that Pharaoh's daughter said, "Go!" So Miriam was not long in calling her mother and presenting her as a nurse. Pharaoh's daughter asked Jochebed to nurse the child for her at a given wage. So thus, Jochebed is now taking care of her baby and even being paid to do that. That is nice. Pharaoh's daughter must have loved the child for she brought him up as her son. But however, Moses later refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, even though she was not. She was the one who gave him the name Moses, which means drawn out of the water, as in Exodus 2, verse 10. If Jochebed was guided by God to make a small cradle and place her 3-month-old baby in it and hide him among the reeds, surely the steps of Pharaoh's daughter were ordered by the same God, even though she was an Egyptian. It was her that Jochebed owed and the saving of her son, as well as the royal protection and all the advantages of Pharaoh's palace as his home for the first 40 years of his life. 40. So in conclusion, I just want to say that Jochebed trusted God even when it seemed hopeless. As she created the basket, she had faith enough to actually put her son in the basket and then place him in the water. You know, as we just read a while ago, Hebrews 11:23 said that she did this by faith. She did not know what will the outcome going to be, but she trusted God. God rewards her faith by allowing her to raise her son through the nursing years. That must have brought peace in her spirit that she did not kill her baby boy. She may have even been allowed to see Moses as she was growing up. How different it would have been if she would have tried to manipulate the outcome. She may not have been able to enjoy this gift of motherhood. Next conclusion that I can say is God uses her faith in the life of his people. Moses is the one God chose to use to bring the people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. In Hebrews 11:26, let us read that. Moses regarded this grace for the sake of Christ of greater value than the treasure of Egypt. God had mighty plans for Moses to lead his people. This plan was possible because Jochebed was faithful and trusted God with her son's life. I also would like to say we should not forget the Pharaoh's daughter, because God did, through the princess of Egypt, of becoming Moses' mom. She was the one who picked. And through her, Moses had the best training and education at that time. I would say that might have helped Moses become the author of the first 5 books of the Bible that we are reading now. So, brothers and sisters, what is your life issue that you need to place in the basket and put it in the river? In other words, what is it, something that we have that we just like to trust God with? Jochebed did not try to hold on to her son or control the events of life. Jochebed had great faith in God to work out the details for good in her life and the life of her people. May we also do the same.